They told me it was just another job. Daytime TV. A little chaos, a lot of smiles, a famous face on stage. But there were things I saw, on camera and off, that I was never supposed to. And once you see behind the curtain, you can't unsee what's waiting there. I didn't grow up wanting to work security. It wasn't the dream. But after years bouncing between gigs in LA, I needed something stable. Something real. When I landed the job at Warner Brothers as part of the internal lot security team, it felt like I could finally breathe. The Ellen DeGeneres show was just one of many productions on site, but it was the crown jewel. Everyone knew that. And when I got assigned to her stage for the first time, people treated it like a promotion. "Don't mess this up," they'd whisper. "Smile. Stay out of the way. Do what you're told." I thought they were joking, until I stepped onto stage 4. The moment you walk in, it hits you. How quiet it is. Not the kind of quiet that comes from being early. It's deliberate, maintained. You feel it in your bones, like the silence is trained to stay there just beneath the floorboards. From the very beginning, there were things that didn't add up. Hallways that were off limits, doors that were always locked, and people who never made eye contact unless they had to. But the strangest thing? Nobody talked about it, like the fear itself was part of the job description. I started on day shifts, usually posted at side stage entries or the rear corridors. Nothing major. Badge checks, verifying studio IDs, that sort of thing. Most of it was uneventful. But over time, I started noticing patterns. Certain staff members never stayed long. Faces rotated in and out with almost no explanation. One day they'd be there, smiling, taking coffee orders. The next, gone. No boxes, no goodbyes, just erased, like they'd never been on payroll at all. And then there were the invitations. They always came the same way. Simple cards, black ink, gold trim. "You're invited." No RSVP, no location. Just a date and the words, "Wear black, bring nothing, leave different." The first time I got one, I laughed. I thought it was some kind of inside joke for the staff. But when I asked a producer about it, he just blinked at me and said, "You're not new anymore," then walked away. It was a Thursday when it really began. A late taping had run overtime and I was covering a hallway near the green rooms. I was supposed to be clearing out the crew and confirming talent exits, but as I stood near the junction between the dressing rooms and Ellen's private office, I heard something strange. Voices, but not the usual kind. No laughing, no talking. Just one voice. Hers. Low, rhythmic. Almost like chanting. Curious, I adjusted the camera feed from the hallway security monitor and zoomed in. I didn't expect to see anything, maybe just confirm she was rehearsing. But the screen flickered, and then I saw her. Ellen stood alone, facing the wall. Her lips moved slowly, like she was talking to someone I couldn't see. Then, behind her, a figure shifted in the shadows. It didn't walk. It slid, like smoke caught in reverse. I leaned in closer, trying to adjust the lens, but the footage started to blur at the edges. Not pixelation. It looked wet, like the image itself was melting. And then Ellen turned, looked straight at the camera, like she knew I was watching. The monitor went black. I rewound the feed. Nothing there, just static. The footage was gone. The next day, the hallway camera was replaced with a new unit. No explanation. No work order logged. I asked one of the techs about it and he shook his head. "Routine update," he said. But the look in his eyes said something different, like he was daring me to push further. I didn't. That night, I started saving backups. Quietly. I rerouted my access through the secondary panel and archived the clips on a private flash drive. I don't know why I kept them. Maybe because I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Maybe because I already knew something was deeply, dangerously wrong. They say some invitations shouldn't be declined. I wish I'd known what this one really meant. It was supposedly Ellen's birthday. The card arrived in my locker, same as the others. Black envelope, no return name. Inside, one line. Tonight, the house waits. I wasn't planning to go, I really wasn't, but that morning Ellen passed me on the lot. She smiled, too wide, and said, "See you tonight." It wasn't a question. I showed up just after 9. There were no cars on the driveway, no valets, no chatter, just the crunch of gravel underfoot and dim lights lining the path. Somewhere in the distance, I heard glass clinking. The front door creaked open before I touched it. The house felt too quiet, like the air itself didn't want me there. A butler in all black greeted me without a word and pointed down a hallway. I followed. The corridor twisted and opened into what looked like a ballroom. But there was no music, no dancing, just people, frozen, watching. They stood against the walls, Oprah, Spielberg, Clooney, Beyoncé, even a former president, not talking, not smiling, just present, as if they weren't people at all, just placeholders, pieces in something much older. Ellen stood in the center of the room. Her suit was black, perfectly pressed. Her hair slicked back like she was attending a funeral, not her own party. In her hands, a porcelain teacup with a gold rim. She turned to me and held it out. "This," she whispered, "is the moment." I didn't move. "Drink," she said, "and you'll never have to wait for permission again." The cup felt warm, heavier than it looked. Inside was a thick golden liquid swirling like it was alive. Behind her, the others began to chant, soft at first, then louder. "Be kind, be kind, be kind," over and over, in perfect rhythm. Oprah's lips moved in sync. Jay-Z's too. The former president. All of them. Their voices joining together like a machine winding up. I looked back at Ellen. Her eyes had gone black. Not figuratively, literally, like someone had poured ink inside them. A string of drool slid down her chin. She leaned in close and whispered, "We all give in eventually." I felt my fingers tighten. The cup trembled, and then I dropped it. Porcelain shattered across the marble floor. The golden liquid splashed across her shoes. The chanting stopped. Ellen's mouth twitched, not in anger, in satisfaction. I turned and ran. I never went back to work. I didn't quit. I didn't send a resignation, I just stopped showing up. No one called. No HR email. No badge access. It was like I'd been erased from the system overnight. For weeks, I tried to make sense of what I'd seen. I stayed in bed, blinds closed, barely eating. The light outside felt wrong. I started having dreams, chanting in the distance, shadows sliding across my walls. Sometimes I'd wake up with the sound of drool hitting the floor. The worst part? I couldn't write it off. Couldn't tell myself it was stress or a breakdown, because deep down, I knew. It was real. And then the flash drive I'd used to save the footage, gone. Taken from my drawer. No signs of a break-in. Just vanished. Like it was never mine to keep in the first place. A few weeks later, I got a package. No return address. Just a porcelain cup. Exactly like the one from the party. Immaculate. Unbroken. And on the underside, carved into the china, "Be kind and give in." I kept the cup in my kitchen sink for a week. I didn't dare touch it again. Every time I passed by, it was like it was still watching me, waiting for me to pick it up, waiting for me to drink. The first night it arrived, I barely slept. Every creak in the apartment felt louder. Every sound from the pipes echoed like a whisper. And I swore I heard someone humming. Not a song, just a sound. Slow, deliberate, familiar. Like the same eerie pattern I'd heard echoing through the hallway that night backstage. The next morning, I opened my front door just to feel fresh air. But there was another box. Smaller this time. Inside, one item. A single matchstick. And a note, folded once, no signature, no markings. "Burn it if you're sure. But remember, the door doesn't close. It waits." I stared at that match for hours. I don't know what scared me more, what might happen if I burned it, or what it meant that someone wanted me to. I moved the cup to a cabinet, top shelf. Shut it. Didn't lock it. Didn't touch the match either, but the chant stayed. Sometimes I'd hear it when I turned on the faucet, or when the fridge kicked on late at night. Be kind. Be kind. Be kind. Always that same cadence, that same perfect rhythm. And sometimes, when I looked into a mirror too long, I'd catch something just behind my shoulder. Not a shape, not a face, just the idea of one. Like my reflection was warning me, or maybe waiting too. I wasn't the only one who saw things. At least, that's what I started to realize. Back on set, before the party, before I walked away, there had been moments. A grip guy muttering about cold corridors. A wardrobe girl who brushed past me once and whispered, "Don't make eye contact today. She's different today." I thought they were exaggerating, that it was just part of working in Hollywood. But now I understand. We were all collecting pieces of something we didn't know we were part of. There was one hallway near the stage we called Corridor C. It wasn't labeled, not officially, but everyone knew it and avoided it. The air back there always felt heavy, colder than the rest of the studio. Some joked that the HVAC was busted, but I checked it myself one night on my rounds. The temp dropped 10 degrees as soon as Ellen passed through. Once I saw her walking alone, slow, eyes half-lidded, like she was being moved by something else. And then, no warning, she turned, looked at me and said, "He's watching now. Be still." I didn't respond. I didn't breathe. She walked past me like I didn't exist. And for a moment, I believed I didn't. Another time, I asked a lighting tech about a new red bulb I'd noticed in that hallway. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. He stared at me and said, "There's no red bulb there." Then walked away without another word. It was never just about Ellen. That's something people outside the industry don't get. The smiles, the dances, the scripted compassion, that was the performance, the mask. But underneath it, there was something else, something older. She told me once during a taping break, "The trickster hides in kindness. That's the beauty of it. Everyone claps, no one looks." She said it so casually, like she was quoting a fortune cookie. But the look in her eyes wasn't casual. It was hollow, like someone had turned the lights on inside her face but left the room empty. One day, near the end, she asked me to sit across from her on the stage. No cameras, no audience, just us. "Pretend you're Taylor Swift," she said. I laughed awkwardly, but something about her tone told me not to make a joke. Then she got quiet, looked straight at me. "You saw him, didn't you?" she asked. I froze. The hallway, the figure. You weren't supposed to see him yet. She walked around the set, pacing like she was retracing something invisible. Then she pointed at the desk, the one from her interviews. "They don't know what's under there," she said. "They never do." She opened a drawer. Inside was a VHS tape, old, worn. The label read, "The Kindness Pact." "He came to me," she said. "Said I'd never have to beg again. All I had to do was stop pretending I cared." I asked what was on the tape. She didn't answer. She just smiled that same empty smile and said, "You're not a good fit. But thank you for your time." The next thing I knew, I was escorted out by two silent men in black suits. They didn't speak, just walked me to the edge of the lot. My locker had already been cleared. I didn't get a check. I didn't get a call. I just stopped existing. I thought I could forget. After I left the set, I changed cities, changed jobs, even changed my name for a while. Tried working on indie sets, doing private security for low-budget shoots. Nothing ever felt solid again. I stopped looking in mirrors too long, stopped using my webcam unless I had to. But the echoes never stopped. Sometimes I'd hear someone say, "Be kind," in passing, and I'd feel my blood turn cold. Once, a stranger on a subway platform looked at me and whispered, "We all give in," then just walked away. I started to wonder if I'd imagined it, if the stress had cracked something inside me. And then I saw the trailer. It was on Netflix, Ellen's new comedy special. The screen was dark, just her, no smile, no lights, no crowd. And then she said it. "The thing about kindness," she whispered, "is that it was always just a trick." The screen cut to black. That night, I tore through my closet. There it was. The envelope, the one she'd given me years ago, just in case you ever feel too heavy. Still sealed. I opened it. Inside was a resignation letter, dated that very day. My name printed at the top, signed by Ellen. My stomach dropped. It had never been a test. There was no real choice. The letter had already been written, the decision made. All that talk, all those warnings, they weren't about making a choice. They were about carrying the weight of an illusion, making you think you failed something that was never yours to win. That was the trick. It wasn't about what you did. It was about letting you believe you ever had control. After I opened the envelope, everything started unraveling faster. I tried to talk to a former producer I'd worked with on another show, someone who knew I'd been at Ellen's for a while, just to test the waters, see if maybe they'd noticed something too. I didn't even say anything specific, I just asked, "Do you remember that time I worked on her set?" He paused, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, "You shouldn't talk about that," and hung up. A few days later, I noticed my IMDb page had changed. All references to my time on The Ellen Show, gone, completely wiped, not even listed as uncredited. No history of my badge, my schedule, nothing. It was like I'd never been assigned to that building, never scanned into the lot, never existed. And once again, I remembered what they always said on set. Don't ask questions. Don't make things awkward. Just smile when you're told to, because the second you step out of line, the machine rewrites you. That's the part no one outside the industry ever understood. Ellen's entire brand was kindness. Be kind to one another. She said it every day like a gospel. The audience clapped. Celebrities cried. Her studio gave away cash, cars, scholarships, and behind the cameras, the staff whispered like they were living in a church haunted by its own God. The kindness wasn't real. It was the trick, the distraction, the mask. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it in the hallway when the air dropped and the temperature changed without warning. I saw it in the ballroom at the party when the most powerful people in Hollywood stood frozen, chanting words they didn't believe but couldn't stop saying. I saw it in the tape she held, the one labeled The Kindness Pact, like it wasn't just a brand, but a binding agreement. And most of all, I saw it in the way she looked at me. That knowing smile, that quiet nod when I dropped the cup. Not surprised, not angry, just satisfied. Because the trick didn't need me to drink, it just needed me to hesitate. A few weeks ago, the cup came back. Not the chipped one I'd left in my cabinet. This one was different, whiter, heavier, but the same gold rim, same impossible warmth. No note, no packaging, just placed on the center of my dining table while I was out getting groceries. That night, I didn't sleep. I left every light in the apartment on. I stared at the cup until the sun came up. In the morning, I checked my apartment door camera. Nothing, no footage. Just a 4-hour gap in the middle of the night. Like someone had edited time itself. And sitting next to the cup was a second envelope. Empty. No letter, no seal, no signature. Just there, waiting. This isn't about one person. It's not even about Ellen anymore. That was the hardest part to accept. That she wasn't the source. She was just another vessel. Another actor cast in a much older role. The host. The conduit. The smiling face that hides the real engine humming beneath it all. The trickster doesn't need believers. It just needs a stage. And when you work in entertainment long enough, you learn something uncomfortable. Fame isn't earned, it's exchanged. Applause isn't free, it's paid for in silence. And the deeper you go, the more you understand that every light on that stage casts a shadow, and some of them move on their own. A few nights ago, I finally watched it. I hadn't planned to. I was scrolling through YouTube, trying to distract myself, and it auto-played. The final clip from her last show. Ellen walks out alone. No crowd, no music, just an empty chair and that same stage. She looks into the camera and says, "The thing about kindness," she pauses, "is that it was always just a trick." And then she smiles. That same smile I saw in the ballroom, the same one she gave me when I broke the cup. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes, a smile that remembers you. I don't know who edited that clip, or why they let it air. Maybe it was a warning. Maybe it was a dare. Maybe someone else finally said no. But when the screen cut to black, I sat there for an hour, frozen, listening. Because in the silence that followed, I swore I could hear the chant again. Be kind, be kind, be kind.